Hello. In this video, we will look at global hunger in the context of the Russian invasion of Ukraine and, of course, the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Now, let's first look at actually the magnitude of global hunger. Uh, According to World Food Program, uh, there are 270 million people on the verge of starvation across the world. This is I mean the worst kind of what you call deprivation. That is 270 million people on the verge of starvation, and an estimated 650 million people are actually living in chronic hunger. That is not starvation, but their access to food is actually very difficult in terms of getting hold of food or their ability to afford such food. And remember, access to food or ending hunger is one of the important targets under Sustainable Development Goals 2015, which are sought to be achieved by 2030. Now, let's look at the factors which actually lead to this state of affairs. People who are on the verge of starvation or suffering from chronic hunger. Now, historically, of course, in a very general sense, poverty and inequality, these are the main reasons, because people living below poverty line, these people are most actually are exposed to the risk of hunger. But there are very important aggravating factors, and historically, drought has been the main reason. Which from time to time, in various phases of history, these have actually caused famine, widespread famine, and you may recall actually the Great Bengal famine during the British colonial period in India. Now, apart from this, wars and civil wars, these are also important reasons for hunger, because generally speaking, these war-torn countries block access to food grains, even international food aid. So now I think some ready examples: Ethiopia, Somalia, etc. These are examples for actually civil war torn regions suffering from hunger. This apart, COVID-19 in the recent past, you're familiar, COVID-19 induced lockdowns, ban on international travel, all these have actually disrupted supply chains, and of course these lockdowns have also led to what you call unemployment. People have lost jobs. Please recall those migrant workers actually going back to their home places, home states. So COVID-19 has also been a major factor in the recent past, and of course a very important factor that is actually whose impact is yet to be felt to any great degree, that is climate crisis. So global warming, climate change is also a very important factor, because agriculture is one of those sectors which is likely to be impacted adversely, as also fishing. Now, both these, agriculture and fishing, are the lifelines for what you call ending hunger, access to food. So both these sectors are likely to be adversely affected because of climate change, and global hunger is critically dependent on addressing climate crisis. Now, a very important issue that that is actually highlighted across the world is India's role in reaching food aid to the needy. You are familiar, India's traditional culture that is a major, actually a very very important idea, a very important dictum, Vasudhaika Kutumbam. That is, the entire humanity is one single family. So India has actually been in the forefront of reaching food aid to nations in distress, regions in distress. We have been sending food aid. Please recall, even after Taliban had actually taken over Afghanistan, our food trucks have traveled to Afghanistan to end hunger there. So Afghanistan, civil war torn Yemen, a number of countries in Africa and Asia, these are also important countries where India has been sending food aid. And in fact, World Food Program has actually acknowledged India's role. And by the way, World Food Program itself is, of course, a recipient of Nobel Prize for Peace, Nobel Peace, for its yeoman service in ending global hunger. And in fact, it is pertinent to note that United Nations General Assembly has actually appreciated India for its concept of Vasudhaika Kutumbam and India's overtures across the world to send food aid. And looking at actually the impact of hunger, generally, especially two vulnerable segments are prone to the impact of global hunger, that is children and mothers, pregnant and lactating mothers. And you are familiar, children also suffer from a number of deficiencies, micronutrient deficiencies, and the impact, you are familiar, has been stunting, wasting, etc. So these malnutrition due to hunger, and two stakeholders, that is women and children, are most adversely affected. Now let's look at India's food security, or how India has actually attained self-sufficiency. Remember, soon after our independence, we were actually not self-sufficient in food, and please recall that PL 480 law, under which India was importing food grains, especially wheat, from the United States. This reliance, this dependence on for food itself on foreign countries, this was actually the state of affairs during our early period of independence. So from being a recipient of food aid, we have actually transformed ourselves into food self-sufficiency, food security, and then of course today we are actually food aid giver. We are food aid giver. Now, how did we actually get this far from recipient of food aid to giver of food aid? So obviously, Green Revolution launched in the mid 1960s. This is the reason for India's transformation. Let's look at some data. Now, average annual production of food grains in India is right now around 300 million tons, and we have also been exporting an average of 20 million tons of food grains. Apart from this, we have also been actually maintaining buffer stocks for food security, and these stocks have been averaging around 100 million tons. So all this is an outcome of Green Revolution. But of course, Green Revolution did not come about in a vacuum. There were actually social, economic, political and administrative factors which facilitated this Green Revolution. Let's look at the policies which facilitated India's transformation through Green Revolution. So first and foremost, land reforms. You are familiar, soon after independence we have launched land reforms so that land can be productively used. That is, the tiller of land can have actually stake, that ownership over land. So this has actually gone a long way in improving, for instance, incentive for the farmers. Then governments both at the central and state levels have been pumping in public investments in public investments into agriculture, and these investments have actually paid rich dividends over the years. Now, what are these public investments? For instance, creation of the construction of multi-purpose dams, multi-purpose projects, which are critical for irrigation, for drinking water, for power, etc. So, apart from this, you are also familiar, India has also created, for instance, an elaborate network of agricultural research and development institutions. So, huge investments have gone into agricultural infrastructure and agricultural research and development. Then India has also created appropriate regulatory systems and institutional mechanisms, institutional infrastructure. For instance, with respect to markets, for instance, we have established regulated markets. What you call APMCs, agricultural markets, which are actually extremely controlled. And remember, these APMCs are sought to be replaced by national agricultural market or electronic national agricultural market. Remember, in those early days, regulated markets were the need of the hour, and these markets facilitated easy access to markets for farmers. Then we have a Food Corporation of India, an elaborate actually system whereby Food Corporation of India procures food grains at MSP prices, that is minimum support prices announced by the government. It procures these food grains at MSP from the farmers and stores them in various what you call warehouses, and warehouses are actually regulated by Warehouses Regulatory and Development Authority. So, elaborate regulatory systems, institutional mechanisms, infrastructure are actually created, and very importantly, to make food available at affordable prices, accessible at all times, India has also established an elaborate network of fair price shops under what is known as public distribution system. Of course, public distribution system was rechristened as revamped public distribution system and subsequently targeted public distribution system. So this is now the lifeline of food security in India. Apart from public distribution system, food security is also ensured by a number of other programs like midday meals scheme in schools, that is, access to food is also ensured in schools. Then we have an integrated child development services program which caters to what you call affordable food for both lactating and pregnant mothers as well as children. Then finally, in 2013, we have brought in an elaborate legal framework giving ourselves a legal right to food. National Food Security Act 2013 has conferred a legal right to food on Indians. So this is the legal framework. So elaborate network of institutions, legal framework, regulatory systems has actually been established in India. Now the outcome is that a nation of more than 1.3 billion people is secure in its need for food, and not only that, we have also actually been exporting food to various countries which are actually in need. So we have created an extremely robust safety net for our huge population. Thank you.